Hello and welcome to the 56th episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm Mark Lee, mentor, speaker and debunker.
And I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101, supporting you to stand out. Each week on the podcast, we showcase another experienced accountant or bookkeeper who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants and bookkeepers in practice around the UK.
We ask them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. And if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or me. We're now taking bookings into July.
Yes, we are. So today we are delighted to introduce Michael Austin, a chartered accountant who started his practice from scratch 24 years ago. Michael leads a team of 5 experienced accountants at Blue Dot Consulting based in southwest London. They specialise in the financial management of business clients, helping MDs and CEOs grow their companies successfully. Each member of the team has worked in business, so knows what it's like to work in or run a finance team in the real world. And they all draw on this experience to support their clients.
Welcome, Michael.
Hello.
What would you like to add before we get into the interview?
Well, that's a very good précis of our business. I suppose I'd like to, how did this come about? That I bumped into Mark at the Digital Accountancy Show the other week, and we figured out that we hadn't seen each other for 8 years. And then I remembered that he was a member of the Magic Circle. So if anyone could disappear themselves for 8 years, it would be Mark Lee.
Thank you for that.
Brilliant.
And Michael very kindly agreed to fill in a gap because we had one gap in our schedule through to the end of June, and I was thrilled that Michael agreed to come in for that.
Never admit gaps. You are not a gap filler, Michael. Right, we better talk about our sponsor, Pinnacle Global, a trusted outsourcing partner with well over 150 clients across the UK and Ireland. Pinnacle CEO Mayank Pandya is a chartered accountant based in London, and he has a passion to encourage innovation and excellence in the accounting profession. Pinnacle has offices in the UK and offshore delivery centres across India, employing over 300 high-quality staff. With a strong focus on quality assurance, Pinnacle has helped many UK accounting firms to scale their capacity and operations. So to find out more, please visit www.pinnacleoss.co.uk. You'll also find the link online wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network. Their website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use. You just pay the tax advisor you choose after agreeing terms with them. Go take a look at their website, findataxadvisor.online, where you can also register to get their weekly tax tips, which are written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Right, now back to Michael. As you know, we aim to keep the podcast around 30 minutes, and we do that by focusing on a few specific questions. And Mark, will you kick off for us, please?
Let's go back to the start, Michael. How and why did you come to set up Blue Dot Consulting?
Well, I'd been doing work as a financial controller, CFO and FD through the 1990s. And one role I ended up with was I was covering maternity leave, and I was a group finance director in a business in southwest London, and that was going to come to an end. And I thought, well, I was 40, 41 at the time. I was thinking, well, I don't want to wake up in 20 years' time and only have done more FDing. So I was going to start my own company, and it was really the objective was to get some sort of interim FD type roles, and in the way that life happens in a way that you can't plan for, it sort of morphed itself. So I set the company up, but it morphed itself into sort of a reasonably full service accountancy practice. That seemed at the time to be where the market was that I could capture. So that's kind of where the business went to. Slightly surprisingly, it wasn't really meant to go there. But there we had it. And I've always had this, and because I had the experience of being the CFO, being the FD, so on and so forth. So I always had this view that I still have today. When I meet a business owner, my question is, well, if I were the FD of this business, how would I organize the financial management? And that's been the question for these 24, 25 years. And our approach has always been, we quite happily have business clients, but if you're a business client of ours, we're going to put you onto accounting software from the get-go. And again, we still do that, which we'll probably talk a little bit about in a minute, but how that informs my views of making tax digital. But every business client that we've had, we've always put them on to accounting software. And the one that we stumbled upon, so I'll give them a shout out, is QuickBooks. We stumbled upon QuickBooks, and their desktop, QuickBooks 2006, was quite frankly the best small business accounting software I'd ever seen. Why is that? Because the reporting is brilliant. And the reason that we have stuck with QuickBooks for most of our work is because the reporting you can get out of it is absolutely superb. It's nimble, it's accurate, but you can kind of fashion a lot of it to your own, to meet the needs of the business. Nothing else back in those days came close. And so we always look at, if I come back to my FD question, if I was the FD of this business, well, one of the bits of the financial management I would want is reporting that is telling the business owners, managers, the top team, the directors, this is how your business is performing. And these are the levers we could pull to perhaps make a bit more profit, or we've got a risk here, and so on and so forth. And having access to really high quality financial management, not even on a monthly management accounts basis, although we're really big on management accounting and management accounts, but just making sure, if there's an aged debtors report, how many people watching this do an aged debtors report and it comes out in alphabetical order, right?
I don't know.
No, nor do I. I imagine some people have now gone and hidden behind the sofa. But, so your aged debtors report, it has to come out with the largest debtor at the top, the smallest debtor at the bottom, with negative balances in red and brackets, so they jump off the page because they're an issue. So, but how many people just follow the reporting that is straight out of the accounting system without actually thinking, well, why am I doing this? Why is this useful? Who's going to get it? So that sort of bit that informs the people running the business has always been where we are. And
just tell me a little bit, because I know before we started recording today, we were talking about industry knowledge and experience, and obviously you've had a lot of that. In terms of looking at the numbers and the data now for your clients, what's the difference? What does that bring, do you think?
Well, it goes to when you start working with a business, what metrics are important? So things like margins.
Yeah.
A really daft example, which I haven't seen this for a good long time, but when is a phone bill not a phone bill? And the answer is, well, when it's rechargeable. So
you don't mean, sorry, just to be clear, you don't mean a rechargeable phone. You mean
No.
that it can be recharged.
Yes. You can recharge the cost. Therefore, we only use burner phones, Mark. You can recharge the cost. Therefore, it's a cost of sale because you've only got that cost because you're making a sale. So you don't want all of your travel and all of your phone bills and so on and so forth necessarily to sit there as overheads when some of them are rechargeable. And so just thinking about that and organizing the chart of accounts and organizing how you do the booking with a view on what's the report we're going to get out of this. And we want to measure profitability. So we want to measure client profitability in a lot of cases. So what you need to do to measure client profitability is, if you've got specific costs that are only incurred because of that client, when you do your bookkeeping for those costs, you have to allocate the client to it.
And you've got this great idea of having it. Is it a chief profit officer?
Oh, the gross profit officer is. So I've got to read the blog, folks. So I've got one of my longest serving blogs is the gross profit officer, and it came out of, we were doing some work with a marketing agency, and they had lots and lots of fairly small projects, and they would quote for the next project and quote for the next project. And we said, well, hold on a minute. Aren't you looking at how much profit you actually made on the projects you've done? Because each of them requires you to bring in various experts to work on it. So, and at the time, they were very happy that we finished the project, we've done the invoice, and we've been paid for it. Yeah, okay, well, that's a good start, but how much profit did you make? And because you had anticipated a certain level of costs that were required for this project, did they come in? Did you overrun? Did you underrun? So let's get somebody, and the gross profit officer in that particular example wasn't a full-time job. It was just someone who we said, you've got all this information in the accounting system. Can you go back and look at a sample of maybe 10 jobs that finished last month, and let's figure out what profit we actually made on them? And then you look at it and you have, oh, that's good, that's good, that's brilliant. Oh my God, well, it went wrong. Okay, well, fine. Why did it go wrong? What can we do to prevent things going wrong the next time? And how do we take what we've learned and put it into our pricing proposals for the next project?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've picked up there, and I guess it's based on my own background as well, is that there are lots of different types of businesses as well. So if you've been in industry like you have, you already have an understanding, if it's a retailer, if it's something else, you kind of know what the the different types of departments there are, and what are the key issues that, it may be that operationally it's very intricate or whatever, but just having that experience to be able to dissect that type of business as well, and start to say, well, we know that the KPIs are going to be these, or this is what we're looking at. That sound, is that true? That just
and it's industry specific, but I think it's business specific. That you go and understand the business, and you say, okay, well, how do your costs behave relative to your revenue and relative to running the business? And we just define a cost of sale as something as being, you wouldn't have the cost if you didn't have the sale. And everything else is an overhead, more or less, is how we split it. And then sorry,
I'm entirely agreeing with you. I see blogs on and threads on Facebook and some LinkedIn posts where people are asking, would you treat this as an overhead, or is it a cost of sale? And to my mind, it is as simple as the question you just asked.
But more than that, that's the accounting bit, which is the end game. It's when you actually spend the money. Why are you spending it? So it's the decision bit that, we're spending this because we're website designers, and we've got this project to design Philippa's next website, and we've agreed a fee with Philippa, and we've got to bring in these 2 or 3 people, an SEO specialist and a coder and whatever, and we roughly think we know how much we're going to spend with them. So let's get their invoices in, so let's get that work done. They'll send us their invoices. Well, the same guy also designs our website. So when he's working on our website, it's an overhead. When they're working on Philippa's website, it's a cost of sale.
Very interesting.
And you'll never know your profitability if you don't try to allocate your costs sensibly. And then some of them you can't. There's a grey area and you can't easily do it. So don't.
Yeah, lovely. So I'm just coming back to the questions, because I realised we've diverted a little bit, and rightly so. But let's dissect your own business a little bit. So what have you learned in those 24 years? And obviously 24 years is a long time in any business, but there are obviously things that have worked, things that haven't. Coming out of it now, looking back, what are the key learnings, do you think?
For sure, one of the things where I look back, and because I never expected I'd be doing this 24 years later, right? But one of the things I should have done is there's 2 or 3 higher education colleges and universities around in Southwest London where we are. Every 3 or so years, I really should have gone and recruited someone who wet behind the ears, just got a sort of a relevant degree probably, or maybe not, and spent 3 years working with that person to bring them through. And I really wish I had done that.
Why? Why?
Because you can get someone, and I think we teach them a lot of really good stuff. Okay. And although we're not an exam, we're not a firm that can do professional exams. We're not geared up for that. But I think it would have been, I never would have had to go and recruit people, I think, or I wouldn't have had to panic about recruiting people, because I would have learned how to do this. And when I was 12 years in, so half the business age now, I would have done that 2 or 3 times, and you would have learned and you would have known what to do. So I sort of really wish I'd done that. The things that you learn are, for heaven's sake, just get the work done as soon as you can. You don't work to the deadline. I mean, okay, COVID came and went. That was a bit of a thing, but you work to get the work done when it can sensibly be done. And Mark might have some sense about what I'm going to say, but one of the things that we did perhaps a bit late in the day, so we did personal tax work, and one year I was getting so fed up with the habitual people that give you stuff in January that we just said, right, we're going to change our pricing. So if you start to give us data after the end of October, you get a higher price. Give it to us in December, the price is higher. Give it to us in January, and frankly, we're not even going to promise to do the return. And the year we introduced that, the amount of tax data we got in the last week of October, you frankly wouldn't believe. So things like, you would. So things like that make a massive difference. And I see people on social media, so I have this notion of tax superhero, right? Of this tax practice. I really don't mean to diss people when I do this, but this notion of sort of tax practitioner that goes into a telephone box on New Year's Eve, comes out and he's Superman with a big T on the front. I'm tax man, and I'm not going to sleep in January until we've got all. And if I'm not busy in January, I have no self-worth. And I think, and I have met people like that.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. And you sort of think, I mean, we just filed a tax return this morning, right? And you think, just get the stuff done, and you can control some of that with your pricing.
Yeah.
You can control some of that with cajoling people. You can definitely control an awful lot of that these days because so much is digital. So you've got access to a lot of it anyway. So I kind of wish we'd gone a bit sooner on sort of the pricing on tax stuff. And I would recommend to anyone who's a tax preparer, look at your pricing and up your pricing. And just also, so saying no. So we used to have a whiteboard on the wall, and just sneaking above the top of the whiteboard was a little slip of paper. And if you read it, it said never again. So we had the never again list, and there were some specific names of people, there were some specific companies, but generically you came to recognize. So if I went out to meet somebody, which I always do, for new clients, go and meet them. And if I thought, well, he or she has several characteristics that I think I'd find on the never again list, then just find a way of saying sort of, okay, but this isn't going to happen.
You've got that. Sorry,
I'm not sure if those are mistakes you've made or just stuff that just you cannot learn on day one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so what is it that features? I mean, Lorraine Allison has her no list. I love Lorraine.
Yeah.
She was, do you know Lorraine? She was very clear on, what featured on the no list. What's on your never again list, without, obviously pinpointing certain people, but
yeah, it was things like moaning about fees, not you data. Now, a lot of the not giving you data has gone away because we're all in the cloud and we've all got bank feeds and. So a lot of that's kind of gone away. Do I trust them? You know, and again, you know, you have a bit of an instinct. And slight digression, everybody who's setting up their own practice or running their own practice, go and watch the Jodie Foster, Mel Gibson Maverick film, right? And you'll learn about pricing. Because there's a scene in that where Mel Gibson's playing poker and he's losing. And for 45 minutes, he loses and loses and loses. Then he starts winning. Inevitably, it being a Western, someone's going to challenge him, call him a cheat, and there'll be a shootout, right? But when he gets challenged on it, he turns around and says, look, for 45 minutes, I've been learning your tells. I've been learning your ticks and your smiles and whatever. I've learned all of that. Now I'm winning. And you sort of have to go and get a bunch of clients that some of them are just not going to work, but you don't necessarily know which ones those are, but you'll start to recognize them a bit sooner as time goes on, right? But do learn how to learn how to lose a little bit, because you learn more about how to run your business and what it's like to have a bunch more clients. If you've got a bunch more clients, you don't necessarily have to keep working with them for the long term. But the Mel Gibson bit about just learning how people behave and taking a bit of a loss on it, but I've invested my time in it, and now I come up the other side, you know. So Mel Gibson, the Maverick film's quite good.
I would say that's a great recommendation, and it's a first. I don't think in over 50 episodes we've had a recommendation for a film. What I will do is I will find the specific clip and add it into the post on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast company page on LinkedIn. Brilliant. So anyone will get to watch it.
If you invite me back again, I'll tell you what you can learn about cash flow from The Great Escape.
Ah, lovely.
That's another one of mine, but we're not doing movie analogies anymore.
Without losing that amazing kind of insight there, how does that apply to team members? Because we've talked about pricing, we've talked about finding clients, we've talked about software and KPIs and stuff. One of the key issues that a lot of people have is managing people, don't they? How have you got on with that?
That's good. Well, you probably should ask them. But the first thing on the accounting side, I've never hired anyone who's only worked in the profession.
Yeah.
Right. A very good friend of mine is ICAW member who's got his own practice in Barcelona, and he refers to himself as the historical cost man. He does auditing and year-end accounts and stuff like that. He couldn't work for me because he's only worked in the profession. Right, lovely bloke, you know, great at what he does. But I want the guy who, this experience is not brilliant, but when you're in a company and it's Tuesday afternoon, and you're just going into your overdraft facility and you've got to pay the payroll on Friday, I want the men and women that have been there, right? And I don't want them to go there a second time. But with that experience, I'm not going to panic under stress. I've got this, I know that there's this problem. Let's try and manage it and deal with it. And so the sort of most of the jobs in our place, we don't have job descriptions. You become the financial controller of a portfolio of living, breathing businesses. That we're doing the bookkeeping as we go. We're doing monthly management accounts, sometimes quarterly if it's a smaller business. But we're sending information, financial performance information back to people on a regular basis. So in a sense, although I sort of review quite a lot of what people do, you don't necessarily have to manage the people, because accountancy has its own life, has its own deadlines and cycles and work cycles. And so long as you stick to all of that, and as I say, do the work when it's available to be done, people don't take a great deal of managing, because you kind of know what the job is. And what we all like is a new client that we can all sort of dive into and learn and understand and meet the people and understand the business. But we don't really do a great deal of management. I've never bothered with. So there's a lot of software you get about practice management stuff. We've got 2 spreadsheets. we've got a payroll checklist. We've got VAT checklist, and they're in Excel. Never changed, never needed to. And then whatever account software we're using, so it was Iris, it's now TaxCalc, but you get some sort of checklisty stuff from within that. And so that's fine, that works for us. Very simple.
And that's a very distinct way of running a practice. Where did you find the people who are working for you now, and how long have they been with you?
Oh, we haven't recruited. I don't think we've recruited anyone this decade, actually. So 1 or 2 people came to us, 1 or 2 by recommendation, 2 or 3 over the years that we've just advertised for. And our job interview is quite good. We give people a bookkeeping test. They literally get a page of T accounts, blank T accounts. I want to know that you can do this, right?
Love it.
And probably the best. So there was 2 of us, both qualified. We're qualified accountants. 2 of us doing an interview with the girl, Elena, and we were in this boardroom with a great big boardroom table. And one of us asked the question: "Your company's just bought this boardroom table. What are the accounting entries?" And we sort of gave a nod to think about depreciation, and she came back and said, "Why would you depreciate the table?" Right, you're hired. That is. We're not going to put it into fixed assets and depreciate it. It's too low value. That is so the right answer. Sign here. So those are the people that we want in our business, because the numbers mean nothing in a vacuum.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what I'm picking up is, after your 24 years, and probably even when you started, you've got a very different way of looking at things, and in many ways it kind of simplifies, but as we always know, that being simple is actually quite difficult to achieve. So it's a bit like the iPhone, isn't it, that everybody uses. And I kind of love the fact that from industry, I mean, there are quite a few people from industry, but I think you've really clearly explained how that is different and what you bring as a consequence of that.
Well, industry is not another planet.
No, well, it's perceived to be, though, for lots of people.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if that comes from the recruitment industry or something like that. Practice and industry, ne'er the twain shall meet. Well, actually, all we're doing is measuring business performance.
Yeah,
no, all we're doing, and better that's done in real time than telling you what happened in your business 12 to 24 months ago.
And I think that's really where you stand out. Because just that clarity, which again I think does come from having been in industry or business, of recognizing that the real value is analyzing the past in order to take actions in the future, rather than only reporting on the past, which is that what we're trained to do? Historically, perhaps we were. I suspect less so now, but that I think your passion in that direction really stands out to me, and I think it's a great lesson to those who may be earlier in their careers in terms of where the real value is that is being delivered to clients. How often would you pick up a new client these days, Michael?
Yesterday. We're probably on sort of client businesses that are $1 million turnover plus. Probably 2 or 3 or 4 of those a year would be plenty.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are great because a lot of them stay with us. So that's good. So we're not on the hunt for lots and lots of work, but it's just really interesting.
Oh, you clearly love what you do and how you do it, and I think you are a great advocate for doing things in a positive way. So I congratulate you and thank you again for coming on the podcast. If anybody's listening and wants to find out more about you and Blue Dot Consulting, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Well, we've got www.bluedotconsulting.co.uk is our website. You'd find me on LinkedIn. And the thing I would encourage people to have a look at is our blog. Because apart from something relatively recently that I wrote on the impact of employers' national insurance, you will find next to nothing that's technical on our blog. A whole bunch of war stories that come from like the gross profit officer and so on and so forth.
Love it.
And the blog, it just comes out of meetings and phone calls and experiences, and going, oh, that'd be brilliant for a blog.
Yeah, well, which I agree. Having sort of taken a quick look at it this morning and yesterday when preparing for this, I thought, yeah, there's a man who blogs pretty much like I do, based on experience and looking to provide help and guidance to others who might be interested. So no, I'd echo that recommendation. So thanks very much for that, Michael. And Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, or my website is insight101.co.uk. And I support accountants and bookkeepers to stand out, a little bit like Michael, who I think is very kind of clear on what makes him different. You know, not everybody can take that step back, and it's usually down to me to understand what the essence of their business is and make sure that that comes through in their website and their marketing. So if anybody's inspired by what Michael's had to say and what we've been talking about today, but they really want to make sure that they've got a very clear brand and a strong message, then I'd love to have a chat with them. Mark, how about you? Tell us a little bit about how people can find you.
Well, online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. Even the business card is a bookmark. And one thing I've learned from my work with accountants generally is that running your own practice isn't easy, and many feel quite isolated. And if you'd like things to feel easier, better, or more on your terms, that's exactly where I come in. Whether it's better clients, fewer headaches, or more profit, I'm always happy to chat, no strings attached. Some ad hoc conversations lead on to regular one-to-one working, or you might decide to join the Sole Practice Club, or we might agree that one chat was all you needed. In any event, I would encourage you to reach out, connect with both Philippa and me on LinkedIn, and follow the podcast pages on LinkedIn and on Facebook. And I would also note that Michael's point about having worked in industry and now being in practice is mirrored by Philippa's approach of having been on the agency side and a client before becoming an advisor herself. And she brings that myriad of experiences together in a way that somebody who's only ever worked with clients perhaps is less able to do.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I'll pay you later. Sadly, that's all we have time for today. Michael, it's been a joy, and I really could have spoken a lot longer than that. But we must go. But we must also thank our sponsors again of the podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
And thanks too to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using the website findataxadvisor.online, where you can also access the weekly tax tips written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Can I just give a testimonial? Because 10 or 12 years ago, I reached out to Mark because one of our clients was being sold, and we got one of the tax advisor team who was brilliant.
I'm delighted. Thank you. You're very welcome to come back and use another one again at any time. Doesn't have to be a 10-year gap, but thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
And we'll pay Michael as well after this. So if you've enjoyed this episode, and I definitely have, please share the love online, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, and let us have your feedback directly too. We'll both be at Accountex, so you'll find us there. Yeah. It all helps to broaden the reach, of course. So please get in touch with Mark or myself if you've been inspired by this, and maybe you'd like to guest on one of our podcasts in the future, or maybe even there's somebody else you want to hear from, so you could recommend them and we'll get in touch with them.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, Philippa. Thank you again to our wonderful guest, Michael. Really, really appreciated it. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.